everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rams Review Podcast. Cory along with you. Today, we wanted to take a look at the season preview. We did it for the men's team. We want to take a look at the season ahead for the Ewe Rams, for the Derby County women's team as they start their season on Sunday. And we thought there was nobody better to join us than friend of the podcast and now Derby County women's captain, Amy Sims. Amy, how the heck are you?
Yeah, really good. It's been a busy preseason, but really looking forward to starting.
So, Amy, I want to start before we talk about Derby and before we talk about you and your hopes for the season ahead. I want to start with the success of the Lionesses earlier this morning for me as I woke up bleary-eyed to watch the match against the Matildas. Excited that England will be playing in a World Cup final against Spain on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Like, they just keep going from strength to strength, don't they? I think, with them winning the Euros, and then you kind of looked at it with some injuries that they had in the team, and it just not seemed to have phased them. They've not even necessarily, played their best football, and they've got to a final of a World Cup. And, I think they've picked the right time to get in on the goal action with the 3 goals today. So, yeah, it's really exciting times.
And I think the thing that stood out for me in this tournament, Vice America getting knocked out in the second round. Let's not talk about that. That's not on the agenda today, Amy. Is just the quality of the tournament. Vice 4 years ago, right? When you looked at it 4 years ago, you looked at an England team, or you looked at a Spain team or a Sweden team, and they were looking at really. And this is not to be rude to any of them, just my own opinion. You're probably looking at a squad of maybe 13, 14 decent players, and then there were a lot of squad fillers there that were still good, but probably not at the drop off after you got the 13 or 14 in the squad was rather significant. And I think in the 4-year period, I always try to look at it as a 4-year period of football, World Cup to World Cup. How's the game changed? How's it matured? What kind of new tactical things are we looking at? And this Women's World Cup stood out to me that, one, the quality has immensely improved through the entire teams in the tournament. And two, when you get to the subs now, these teams, they used to be bringing on girls and ladies on late on that you'd be like, okay, they're really, whatever. But now they're bringing players on that are of the quality, if not better, than some of the starting players, which for the growth of the game has to be a great thing to see, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. Like, you've seen the players that are coming on and contributing to the goals, like super subs, as you call them. But like you said, I think in previous years, you've not necessarily had the squad that you've wanted to go and travel to a tournament with, but tournament football is all about the squad, and you've got to be able to rotate players in and out, and that's probably where England have got their success. Serena always talks about this squad, and from the Euros you saw it with Toon and Russo coming in, and now they've cemented their place in the starting squad, and it's other players coming off the bench to do the exact same. So yeah, I think it's exciting times, and other teams tend to be doing the same now.
And you mentioned they're exciting times, and this is the perfect segue, Amy, because I'm not gonna ask you or Jack, who's alongside me today, I'm not gonna press either of you for prediction, because as I've learned, the first rule about Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club, so we're not gonna make any predictions because we're just not gonna do that. We're gonna just let that one go. We're gonna move on. So, Amy, when we spoke last time on the podcast, the news had just come out that the women's team was going to be more integrated into Derby County Football Club as a whole, which it was, but it also kind of wasn't in kind of not a strange way. I guess it's not uncommon for women's football, but under the new ownership, David Klaus wanted to bring the women completely under to the Derby County Football Club banner. You guys now have a space at Moore Farm, where I know you're off to training tonight. So how has life changed for you as a player for the Ewe Rams from the last time we spoke to now, having signed that contract, now having been a part of the football club proper, which you always were, but contractually and having the facilities and things like that? How's life changed for you and the player and the girls in the dressing room?
Yeah, I think it's more just like the access. It's increased massively. We've gone to 3 times training sessions a week now. So we do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we've got a full Wednesday that's just dedicated to S&C and your fitness side of stuff. Whereas before you kind of had to squeeze that into your Tuesday and Thursdays. Then you're missing out on that footballing time that you really need. So we get to have a lot more football time on a Tuesday and Thursday and kind of dedicate that to a Wednesday. And then we have our hub now that's just fully dedicated to us. So the girls can go into that before, after training, and it's just a place that we can do like our analysis. So throughout pre-season, we've kind of joined in there and gone through our games, and it's just kind of like feeling like you've got your own space in Moor Farm, rather than it being like, oh, am I allowed to go into that bit? Am I allowed to? Whereas actually, you're part of the club now. You've got your own section, but also we're using the gym, we're using the training facilities. So I think that access has been really good. And then also, like, although we've not got it yet with the kit, I think just things like that, getting the men's like actual kit with the away and the third team kit this year, whenever it comes, we're actually, getting that same thing that the men's team would get. Whereas previous seasons, we'd get our first team kit with our names on, but then the away kit, we'd just have our numbers on, because then it'd have to be reused for pre-season the next year and stuff. Just like little things like that, that just make you feel a lot more part of the club in general.
And Amy, you've been part of the setup for quite a while. So, for you to continue to see this growth of the club, and you're a Derby County supporter as well, it must be incredibly proud moment for you to not only be a supporter, but to see the consistent growth in the game, and then the investment that this club's putting into you and the other girls in order to excel and achieve more and more and more. And my assumption is here that it must be incredibly awe-inspiring and really lift the levels in training and in games when you know that you have these facilities, because players want to be there. They want to train at Moor Farm. They want to be able to have access to the gym. They don't want to, get released or transferred. They want to be part of the club now. Not saying that they didn't want to be in the beforehand, but it must kind of lift the levels a little bit to sit here and go, this club's getting serious about this. I need to up my game so I can make sure that I'm still remaining part of this while it's trending upwards.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that if you want to be competitive in this league, you're going to have to offer players, the best of the best, because otherwise they will go to other teams. And I think the whole point of what we want to do at Derby is to bring academy players through to the first team. And you're only going to be able to do that if you pave a pathway that's exciting for younger players, that they're going to be able to progress and actually hopefully one day have it as a full-time career as well. So then you're not going to lose, your best players to the likes of Championship or WSL teams, because hopefully you'll be in a pathway to get in there yourself. But yeah, just for the players this year as well, players that have been here for a long time, new players that are coming in, they're all impressed with the setup and the training facilities and everything. So it shows that, it's helping to build not only players that we've already had before and up their game, but new players coming in, they're just as impressed, and hopefully it will allow us to bring in more and more players with the progress of what's going on in the game as well.
And when we talk about progress, I want to talk about your progress a little bit, Amy, because I saw the announcement come out, and I was absolutely buzzing for you, as I know Jack was, and Jason as well. Amy Sims, Derby County ladies captain. Give me your thoughts about the conversation, becoming captain, and what it means to you to lead the Ewe Rams this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a really proud moment, not just for me, for my family as well. Growing up, my mum took me to my first Derby game. Then we got a season ticket with my uncle and cousin. So watching the games at Pride Park, and then actually being able to play at Pride Park, and like this year leading the girls out at Pride Park, it's just a full circle moment, really. And playing with the academy teams, I remember being a captain of like the under-10 teams. So it just feels like a full circle moment of, being captain of the academy team to then come to the first team and get the captain. And yes, it just shows as well that I think it's that extra bit of confidence boost from your manager as well. If they believe in you to become captain, then it's kind of like, oh yeah, she really does feel that I can really help grow and support this team in the way that we both want to. We, like I say, with the girls coming up in the academy, hopefully they can see me as a role model. I've come up through the Derby Academy and now first team captain, so why can't they?
And Amy, I'm incredibly proud to see how you continue to grow into the role this season, and I think it's very, very well deserved. What kind of captain are you going to be? Are you going to be somebody that's giving them the business, or are you going to be somebody that's going to put their arm around them and try to lift them up, or are you experienced enough as a player to understand which players need which and try to manage try to manage those personal relationships as people need it.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit more experienced now to know what each player needs. And I think, we really do have a split of youngsters and older players. And I think we've got leaders within the team that can help me with that. But you know that if you're absolutely shouting and effing and jeffing at a younger player, that they're just going to look at me with starstruck eyes, like, what is this girl shouting at me for? So I think I'm definitely more of a leader that leads by example. They'll see me putting in a good tackle, or, oh, Amy's trained really hard tonight, right? That's the level that we're at. I need to be at that level. So definitely more a lead by example. But I think, if the time was to come of it, sometimes you've got to be brutal.
Yeah, you really have it at times, I guess, to strive for the high standards that are in this league now. I mean, we saw last season standards getting higher. I think they're only going to get higher again this year. If you look around the league as well, you've got, Forest obviously didn't go up. Now champions will go up. That's going to make a big difference in terms of everyone striving for promotion, knowing that if you win the league, you're guaranteed to go up, right? That's got to be a little bit of extra motivation as well for the players in all the teams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as all the teams have been saying for the past couple of seasons, that it's crazy that if you win a league, you don't go up. So yeah, it's really nice having that incentive of you don't have to play a playoff and potentially stay in the league this year. But like you said, you've got Forest that won the league last year. You've got Wolves and Burnley that were only a couple points off. You've got Newcastle that have gone full time. So it's just going to be such an exciting season. And obviously we're wanting to be one of those teams that's facing them up there at the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge for anybody, isn't it, in that sense? But I think this Derby team, is it fair to say, you look at they started last season and what we were talking about with it being a young team who are building and kind of with a season under their belts and a good run in the second half of last season, this Derby team is in a stronger position than it was a year ago, isn't it? That's definitely something that I've noticed with all the changes off the pitch as well. With, as Cory said, you're all being contracted now, so I think. What are your thoughts compared to when we sat here a year ago? More optimistic?
Yeah, definitely. I think we were all pretty open with our pre-season probably wasn't the best last year. But this year we've really been able to hit the ground running, get the formation right, what Sam wants us to play. And I just think we've been able to bring in a good mix of experienced players and younger players that are dual signed. So, we've got 2 players that came over from Forest, but obviously they won the league last year. So that's 2 players that have already know how to win the league. And then we've got a few younger players from academy teams that are in for women's football, and their technical ability is so good. They're so talented. So now it's just teaching them the in and outs of the league, and they've all fit in really well. So I think we're definitely in a much better position as a team as a whole from last year. Everyone that stayed, we've had a year experience with each other under the belt, and then now you've added extra talent into that. We're definitely in a much better position this year.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, as well, the other thing to mention for people who've not necessarily tracked the transfers over the summer, that's with only a couple of departures. I mean, there was the retirement of Megan Clarkson, and then Kira Barry returned to a parent club. But the core of that squad is still together, which is a difference from last year when, again, we were talking about kind of a few new players and gelling a bit more. So it's positive, isn't it? It's just from a fan perspective, I feel much more positive. And it does seem that's reflected from what I'm seeing from, interviews and just the team in general. So, yeah, someday will be a big day in more ways than one, won't it?
It certainly will, Jack. And Amy, with the increased competition, that obviously breeds continually good competition throughout the squad in training and matches. It gives Sam Griffiths, the manager, some potential selection headaches because now you have, like we talked about at the opening, you have more squad depth now than probably what you've had in, 2 or 3, maybe 4 years. You've got players who came in from a title winning side at Forest or a side that finished top at Forest. So they're going to understand what the level is required to get out of the division. I always think it's good to bring players in like that because they can sit there and say, you might think you're doing enough, but you need to do this extra 5% because that's what we did. And then you can sit there and go, well, you had success with it last year. Who's to argue with that? Plus that also weakens a rival. And we love the whole weakening of the Nottingham Forest rivals. That's the best part. But Amy, I was looking at the squad, and when we first started talking 18 months ago, you were a hard charging right back who was getting stuck into tackles and everything like that. We spoke last year where you converted into like a midfield role, and now you're listed as a forward. So talk about the positional change and the positional evolution of Amy Sims from rough tackling defender, not rough tackling as in bad, but I'm just saying like hard working, grafting, getting stuck in, letting them know that you're there, to now leading the line for Derby County.
Yeah, so it was kind of came back for pre-season last year, and Sam just kind of said, I want to try you in this midfield role. Obviously, we didn't have that many experienced players, a lot of players leaving. So kind of went in that role the first game of pre-season and never kind of escaped the role. But I really like that midfield role. Last season, I got a lot of success off the third man run. And I just love playing there. Probably was surprised at the amount of goals that I was able to get in the midfield role. But obviously I'll take them all the more. But yeah, going into next season, still in that like midfield / forward kind of role, higher midfield role. But I think it kind of works in your favour because you know other positions on the pitch, and you can always use that to your advantage. So in 1v1 situations, I always feel quite comfortable because when you're playing right back, you're very exposed in 1v1 situations, and you're always going to be the same in the midfield area. And it just allows me to kind of adapt my role. Not only can I focus on the attacking front, but I've also got that defending side of things locked in from many, many seasons at right back. So yeah, I think it's just transferring some of those skills that I had at right back and allow myself to wander a bit more forward and get in on the goal action rather than trying to keep a clean sheet.
I said to Jack and Jason last year, because you were on this incredible scoring streak. I don't know how many consecutive games you scored or whatever, but it was like water is wet and Amy Sims scores goals. That's you can take that to the bank. Life, death, taxes, and Amy Sims scoring goals, because it just felt like every week you were just popping them in. It was absolutely fantastic to see. Back onto the team, Amy. With you kicking off against Wolves on Sunday, obviously Sunday's a big day for the reasons we discussed previously. What is the hope this season? We know what the hope is results wise. I think the expectations are probably higher now, maybe within the club and the group, than probably what they have been in previous years because of the quality you brought in, because of the success you had last season, because of that automatic spot. But continuing to see the game grow and develop from a Derby County perspective, because we know you've got the WSL, you've got the league below the WSL, and then you've got where you guys are.
Mm-hmm.
If England, well, whatever happens, England's had a very successful tournament. What is the hope as the football club? Is last year you had great crowds, you had great attendances, you started to continue to grow that fan base. Are you hopeful that support even becomes more fervent and there's more support this year based off of the success of what the Lionesses do, and sitting there and saying, I watched the Lionesses at the Women's World Cup. It was a good standard. I really enjoyed it. Whatever happened. But now I can go and support my local team, and I need to go down to support Derby County. Is that what the hope is? That because we've talked about building a culture, continuing to build a fan base, it's continuing to build that, isn't it? And continuing to get slightly larger crowd out week after week after week and continue to grow that fan base.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's really about growing that attendance at the local level, because you'll probably get massive attendance growth in your WSL and your championships, but you want local girls to come and watch us play. So it's about us raising our standards, raising our profile. I think joining with the men's will really help with that, because you've got the men's social media accounts that will hopefully help promote our games too. But yeah, I think it's just making sure that local girls can feel that they can come and watch the derby games and rather having to travel a little bit further to your Aston Villas, and which is all great. You want them to watch the best football and at that top level, but I think we've got to grow our fan base, so it's getting even better as well. And I think off the back of the Euros, it grew massively, which we probably weren't expecting as many to come down locally, but yeah, it really grew. So I think it can only get bigger off the success of the World Cup. And then I guess it's just up to us to make sure that we're setting our standards on the pitch and raising the game in our way as high as possible as we can get.
And that's your job, Amy, as captain, to make sure that the standards don't drop, and you need to be on them if they do. Before I let you go, Amy, because I know you don't run to training, save your energy for training, but I know you have to get to training. If you had a message for a listener or viewer of this segment of this episode, or what would you say to a Derby County supporter who's kind of on the fence or sitting there thinking, I don't know whether really to give them a go or whatever? What would you say to them to entice them to come on down to watch the Ewe Rams this season?
I think just come and give it a go. I think talking a lot from people that have come down the first time coming and supporting, they're pleasantly surprised. So I think come down, give it a go. You'll get in free with your season ticket if you're a Derby fan. So worst case, you've just lost a couple of hours on a Sunday, but I promise you it won't feel like that. You'll come down, you'll watch us play, you'll want to come back for more, and then you'll hopefully be following not only the men's team, but the women's team. So yeah, I think out of anything, just come and give it a go, and show your support, because, the girls really appreciate it, and it really does help. The more supporters we see in the crowd, it just really helps boost our performance as well. So if anything, you'd just be boosting the girls and supporting the Derby team.
And Amy, I lied. There was one more question for you as well. That's really good. That's very good. And I'm hopeful of making the trip over this autumn. So if I'm able to do it and the times sync up and everything like that and locations and whatnot, I will be front row and center. And I may even make you a sign. We'll see. We'll see. I may even make you a sign. And Jack will be there as well. We'll both have signs.
Yeah, I will just say now as well. I will be there as much, hopefully a bit more this season, get some more, coverage integrated into the podcast over the season. So for people to track the season, if they can't get there or they just want the same kind of analysis reaction that you enjoy with us, hopefully for the men's team, we will have, we'll have more of that. I know that's something that a few people asked us for, so we're building on that. And hopefully be a good season. The other thing, I guess, to mention actually is there is, if anyone wants information on Wolves ahead of the game, there is a Wolves Women podcast somewhere. Just search them up on Twitter or something and find out about the opposition through there ahead of Sunday. So yeah, just for research purposes. Yeah. Anyone wants to get more involved in more knowledge ahead of the game as we build up to what will be a huge day on Sunday. I don't think we can kind of overstate how big that is. Then yeah, so it's 2:00 as it stands, 2:00 kickoff at Don Amott Arena in Mickleover.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Jack. And we are trying to expand our coverage and making sure that's a little bit more concise and catching up with Amy and the girls at regular intervals. Amy, one last thing before I let you go. I was remiss. I should have mentioned this at the beginning part. I had it in my notes, but I skipped over it. In addition to being named captain, you are part of the Derby County memorable moments that have recently come out as the first woman to ever score at Pride Park. And I believe that your photo will be adorning the tunnel as teams walk out. As a Derby County supporter, we've talked about what it means for you to be captain. What's it like to have, your likeness in the tunnel for everybody to see when you walk out, and to be considered, one of those memorable moments in this football club's long and storied history?
Yeah, it's amazing, because then you're actually, part of Derby history. And also, like, whenever I'm at Pride Park, whenever you go up to the suites for presentation night, or you're in the tunnel when you're playing at Pride Park, there's never any photos of like the women's team. So I'm always like, it'd be really cool if like there was a photo of one of the women's players there. So for that to be me, it's just a really proud moment. yeah, it was just really cool to see, and can't wait to see it when I actually get to go to Pride Park and walk out for the tunnel. I think that'll be really special the first time I see it.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for your dedication to the cause at Derby, and we look forward to a successful season and catching up with you later. I know you have to go to training, so I am going to let you go. Yeah, training at Moore Farm as well. So Amy Sims, Derby County Ladies Captain. Amy, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us, and best of luck this season, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, thanks guys. See you soon.